So when they saw a man completely wrapped up, enveloped in a garment, فَسَلَّمَ Musa, so Musa said salam to him, فَرَدَّ عَلَيْهِ, so he responded to him, فَقَالَ, and he responded to him by saying, وَأَنَّا بِأَرْضِكَ السَّلَامِ, and how do you people say salam where you come from? You just say salam, you don't introduce yourselves? So the man kind of was a little bit aggressive and said, this is it, this is all the salam you guys do where you come from? أَنَّا بِأَرْضِكَ السَّلَامِ. And notice he doesn't say وَأَنَّا بِأَرْضِكُمَا السَّلَامِ. It's as though Musa alayhi salam has already grabbed the fatah and said, let me do the talking. And now he's getting put in his place a little bit. قَالَ أَنَا Musa. I said, oh, okay, I get what you're saying. I'm Musa. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Musa. I'll introduce myself properly. قَالَ Musa bani Israel. Musa from the children of Israel. Musa of Bani Israel. It's mudaf ilayh. Musa bani Israel. Okay. Typically a proper name is not used as a mudaf, right? But you know in Old English, I am David of Camelot or something. You know? So they use of instead of from. Like nowadays you say, I'm Mike from Chicago. Like, you know, you don't say I'm William of Dallas. You don't do that. You say from. But in Old Arabic and Old languages, you use a lot of, right? So Musa of Bani Israel, قال نعم. أتيتك لتعلمني مما علمت رشدا. I came to you so you could teach me from what you've been taught in terms of uprightness and guidance. قال يا موسى. He said, Musa, إني على علم من علم الله. I am committed and I'm committed to knowledge from within the knowledge of Allah. علمنيه الله لا تعلمه. That Allah has taught me that you don't know. Allah has taught me that you don't know. وأنت على علم من علم الله. And you are committed to knowledge, some knowledge, from within the oceans of knowledge of Allah. علمكه الله لا أعلمه. That Allah has taught you that He hasn't taught me. I don't know it. Which means Allah has given you Torah, Allah has given you revelation. I haven't received that revelation. But Allah has taught me some other things that you never learned. قال هل أتبعك. So He says, can I follow you? قال إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. You're certainly not going to be capable of patience with me. وَكَيْفَ تَصْبِرُ عَلَى مَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ خُبْرًا. And how can you be patient over something you haven't encompassed, you don't have full news of? In other words, I was telling you before, his assessment of Musa alayhi salam is that he cannot be patient over partial information. Okay? Which goes back to actually one of the earlier incidents in the life of Musa alayhi salam too. All the information isn't there and he became upset at the Israelite being attacked. Right? And he took action and he wasn't able to bear just standing there and watching. Right? Anyhow, so the narrator says from here, لم تحد به خبرا قال ستجدني إن شاء الله صابرا ولا أعصي لك أمرا فانطلقا. All of that until they wrecked the ship. He recited all of that. The Prophet recited all of those ayat in this place. فانطلقا, so they moved forward. يمشيان على ساحل البحر, walking along the coast of the sea. فمرت بهما سفينة. So a ship passed by them. كلموهم, they called out to them, spoke to them. أن يحملوهم, that they can be boarded on. Can we board on to your ship, guys? فعرفوا الخضر. So they recognized Khidr. This is the first time we're hearing his name. So they recognized Al-Khidr. فحملوه بغير نول. So they let him board on without any نول. نول means compensation, any fee. Okay. فلما ركب في السفينة جاء عصفور. So when they boarded onto the ship, a bird came, a sparrow, literally a sparrow came. فَوَقَعَ عَلَى حَرْفِ السَّفِينَةِ. So it sat at the very edge, at one of the bottom edges of the ship. فَنَقَرَ فِي الْبَحْرِ نَقْرَةً أَوْ نَقْرَتَيْنِ. And it pecked into the ocean once or twice, like dipped its beak in the water once or twice. قَالَ لَهُ الْخَضِرُ يَا مُوسَى. So Musa alayhi salam, Khidr said to Musa, ما نقص علمي وعلمك من علم الله إلا مثل ما نقص هذا العصفور بمنقارة من البحر. The knowledge you and I have from within the banks of knowledge of Allah hasn't diminished what Allah still has with Him that we don't have, except like this, the droplet that this bird has just pecked from the ocean. That's all we have. So now, the story began with I know more, right? And now he's met someone who knows more. And the one who knows more says, put together we know nothing. Put together we really don't know anything. Okay? And there's this humility that's coming with knowledge. I'm reminded of Shah Waliullah Dehelwi's famous quote, rahimahullah, when he would graduate students, he would tell them the same thing every time. He would say, when a tree bears fruit, its branch is lower. When a tree bears fruit, its branch is lower. And his way of taking, when you've acquired knowledge, which is fruit, then it should actually bring you humble, should bring you down, not bring you up. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us of those. So he says, we don't really know anything. إِلَّا مِثْلَ مَا نَقَصَ هَذَا الْعُصْفُورِ بِمِنْقَارَةٍ مِنَ الْبَحْرِ إِذْ all of a sudden, so now there's this sweet spiritual lesson. We don't know anything except this little droplet. There's this imani kind of experience, and out of a sudden, he grabbed the axe, فَنَزَعَ لَوْحًا, and you know where the bird was, right at the brink, where the water is? So the ship is like shaped like this. So the front of it is called the qaddum, from Quddam, the very front. That's where the water gushes and hits against the ship, right? So he says immediately he grabbed the axe and he yanked out a board. قَالَ فَلَمْ يَفْجَأْ Musa. Musa was not even shocked yet. إِلَّا وَقَدْ قَلَعَ لَوْحًا. So he didn't know, why is he axing the board? Maybe he's doing something I don't understand. Maybe some new kind of salah. I don't know what he's going to teach me. He's still not surprised yet. But once he axed it, he loosened it, he yanked it out. And it's at that point that Musa alayhi salam, it hit him, what's he doing? What is he doing? So وَقَدْ قَلَعَ لَوْحًا بِالْقَدُّمْ فَقَالَ لَهُ Musa. Musa said to him, مَا صَنَعْتَ? What have you done? قَوْمٌ حَمَلُونَ بِغَيْرِ نَوْلٍ. A group of people let us board onto their ship. They didn't even charge us anything. عَمَدْتَ إِلَى سَفِينَتِهِمْ. You had evil intent to destroy their ship. عَمَدَ, to purposely do harm to something. عَمَدَ. Ta'ammud actually means intentful behavior, right? So you intentionally did this to their ship. فَخَرَقْتَهَا لِتُغْرِقَ أَهْلَهَا. You damaged it so you can sink its inhabitants or the people on board. لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا إِمْرًا. You've done something really terrible. Imr, one of the words in Arabic for terrible. We'll get into it when we go ayah by ayah. قَالَ أَلَمَّ قُلْ إِنَّكَ لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِيَ صَبْرًا. Didn't I say that there's no doubt about it? You're not going to be able to bear patience with me? قَالَ لَا تُؤَاخِذْنِي بِمَا نَسِيتُ. He said, don't take me to account over what I forgot. وَلَا تُرْهِقْنِي مِنْ أَمْرِي عُسْرًا. And don't lean on me and be difficult on me in the decision that I made. فَكَانَتِ الْأُولَى مِنْ مُوسَى نِسْيَانًا. So the first excuse that Musa alayhi salam presented in his defense was forgetfulness. The first line of defense was forgetfulness. فَلَمَّا خَرَجَا مِنَ الْبَحْرِ. Then when they both came out of the sea, مَرُّوا بِغُلَامٍ يَلَعْبُوا مَعَ الصِّبْيَانِ. They passed by a boy that was playing with other little children. فَأَخَذَ الْخَضِرُ بِرَأْسِهِ فَقَلَعَهُ بِيَدِهِ هَكَذَا وَأَوْمَأَ سُفْيَانُ بِأَطْرَافِ أَصَابِعِهِ كَأَنَّهُ يَقْطَفُ شَيْئًا. This is part hadith, part describing how Sufyan narrated the hadith. He visually explained what was happening. He said he grabbed the kid by his head and he moved his hands out like this and he just plucked like he was plucking something. Like he yanked the kid's neck and snapped his neck. That's what he did. Very disturbing. And then فَقَالَ لَهُ مُوسَى قَتَلْتَ نَفْسًا زَكِيَّةً بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ. What have you done? You killed a pure person, a pure soul, without him having committed murder. You've done something completely unheard of. قَالَ أَلَمَ قُلْ لَكَ إِنَّكَ لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِيَ صَبْرًا. Didn't I iterate to you that no doubt you are not going to be able to bear patience with me? قَالَ إِن سَأَلْتُكَ عَنْ شَيْءٍ بَعْدَهَا فَلَا تُصَاحِبْنِي. He said, if I were to ask you anything after this, after it, don't accompany me. قَدْ بَلَغْتَ مِن لَدُنِّي عُذْرًا. You have now reached whatever udhr, whatever excuse on my end, you are fully justified in letting me go, basically. That's what udhr means. Udhr in Arabic, not just used for excuse like al-ma'adhiru makadhib. I'm reminded of the words in Surah Al-Mursalat, udhran aw nudhra, right? Those words are very powerful because Allah takes an oath, right? He takes an oath by winds, winds that do different kinds of things, winds that can pluck trees out of the earth, and then winds that bring clouds. And the contrast is that winds can kill and winds can give life, right? And as a result, winds are a means for human beings to reflect that the creation and the gifts Allah has given you can be a source of your destruction and can be a source of your benefit. Water is life, but water can kill. Wind gives life, wind can kill. Revelation, if benefited from, gives life. Revelation, if disregarded, will kill. You know, Allah says, like a narration says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْفَعُ بِهَذَا الْقُرْآنِ أَقْوَامًا وَيَضَعُ بِهَا آخَرِينَ أو بِهِ آخَرِينَ. Because of this Quran, Allah raises some nations and puts some nations down. That's because of the word of Allah too, right? So as a result of that, He says, فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا. As a result, these winds, they always bring you into contact with something to reflect on, something to remember. And then He says, عُذْرًا أو نُذْرًا. And عُذْرًا there specifically, as enough of an excuse of a case against you. Meaning whatever happens to you after winds were sent to you, on Judgment Day, if no revelation was sent to you, nothing else was given to you, Allah has the right to ask you, didn't I give you wind? Wasn't that enough to ponder on? That was enough of a case against you. عُذْرًا. That's actually the implication of عُذْرًا in that ayah. عُذْرًا أو نُذْرًا. So when Musa says عُذْر, he's saying, you've got all the justification you need to expel me from this university. Right? أعذرك في مفارقتي لأنك بلغت النهاية في التنبيه. فانطلقا. So they moved forward. حتى إذا أتيا أهل قرية استطعما أهلها, until they approach the inhabitants of a town where they both seek food from them. استطعما أهلها. يعني طلب منهم الطعام ضيافة. They asked for some food from them just out of hospitality. فأبوا أن يضيفوهما. So they refused to show them any hospitality. فوجد فيها جدارا يريد أن ينقض. So they found in it a wall that wants to tip over. مائلا, tipping. Now مائلا is his comment. وأومأ بيده هكذا. Then they say that Sufyan made a gesture, or the Prophet made a gesture so and so. وأشار سفيان كأنه يمسح شيئا إلى فوقه. And Sufyan made a gesture as though he is passing his hand over something above him, like a wall that wants to tip over. I imagine he did something like this. Okay. Now, فلم أسمع سفيان يذكر مائلا إلا مرة. But I've heard Sufyan say this story multiple times. I've only use the word مائلا, leaning, only once. So the narrator is even sensitive enough to say, by the way, he only used the word مائل that one time. But I figured I should write it in. قال قوم أتيناهم. Musa alayhi salam said, a group of people, we approached them. فلم يطعمونا. They didn't give us food. ولم يضيفونا. They weren't even very hospitable to us. عمدت إلى حائطهم. You purposely went towards their wall, and you intentfully, with full consciousness, built it up for them. لو شئت لاتخذت عليه أجرا. Had you wanted, you could have been compensated for it. You could have taken from because of it some compensation. قال هذا فراق بيني وبينك سأنبئك بتأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا. This is the parting between you and myself. I will now inform you of the interpretation of what you couldn't bear patience over. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وددنا أن موسى كان صبر. Musa alayhi salam said, we wished that Musa alayhi salam remained patient. فقص الله علينا من خبرهما. So Allah would have told us more about what happened with them. So Allah wanted to know more. And what's really beautiful here, خبرهما, some attribute this to, we could have learned more about their journey and they could have learned more. And some say that the hima here refers to the two kids, like he wanted to know about their well-being. The khabarihima, because I wanted to know what happened with those children. أي ما قد يقع منهما أكثر مما ذكر. What more could have occurred? قال سفيان قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يرحم الله موسى لو كان صبر لقص علينا من أمرهما. May Allah show mercy to Musa alayhi salam. Had he been patient all along, actually, we would have been told much more from their affair. They could have spent a lot more time together, and he could have learned a lot more. One of the morals of the story from the hadith perspective is that a student will lose patience, and when they lose patience, their journey to learning more will be cut short. They could have benefited a lot more, they could have gotten a lot more, but their temperament kept them. So it's not only one's intelligence and one's capacity to learn and memorize and internalize that plays a role in one's journey in learning, but also one's temperament. One's patience with their teacher, and one's ability to accept, look, I don't understand everything. And if you tie the themes of the story as narrated in this hadith together, you come away with some very beautiful conclusions. In the beginning, you're told that everything we know is just a drop in the ocean, right? But when you see things you can't understand, at that point to remember, I cannot fully comprehend what's happening here because what I know is a drop and the reality of this is the ocean. Right? At that point, it's hard to remember. At that point, I saw what happened. I know what happened. How could this be the case? Like at that point, you don't want to accept that you don't know the whole story. It's too difficult to see something, to have some knowledge, and accept that you don't know everything. That's really, really hard to do. In my last khutbah, Colleyville, I actually spoke along these lines. It's another, and that's more, it's not even about learning, the journey of learning, but about passing judgment, which is related, right? You don't know the entire story. There's always somebody who knows more, even if you've seen something happen in front of your eyes. And that's why even the ayah, فَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ, above everybody who possesses knowledge is somebody, a knowledgeable one, right? And a fully knowledgeable one. Alim could be about kamal, fully knowledgeable. Someone who has the full story. That is part of the ayah in which Yusuf alayhi salam had hidden the cup in his brother's bag. And he had done so, if you didn't know the whole story, you would think he schemed, he lied, he conspired, he falsely arrested. Like there's a lot of bad conclusions you'd arrive at. And don't say Yusuf, put somebody else in his place and say one of the students put one of their wallets in somebody else's bag and got them arrested. You would not find that to be an acceptable course of behavior. We would all pass judgment. Don't try it as an attempted tafsir of the ayah. Please don't try that. But if you did do that, it would be really easy to say, this is what happened. And if somebody says, you don't know the whole story. Yeah, you're always saying you don't know the whole story. It's on camera. We saw it. We know what happened, So when you see something, it's just too hard to accept. I don't know what's behind the scenes. I don't know what prompted this behavior, And that's kind of along the lines of what happens in this story. What's happening in front of him is so intense. It is at that time to just take a step back and say, I need to take this in and not react. And the last thing I'll tell you is from a thematic perspective, because we'll go ayah by ayah next. I gave you the story's overview last time and this narration today. One thematic thing I want to share with you, how is this connected to the fitan? Because the surah is connected to the fitan of the future, the trials that the ummah will face in its future. One of the most difficult things that the ummah will have to learn is to face harsh realities. And every time we face them, we're going to say, why is this happening to us? What's the point of this? This is so unfair. And we're going to get overwhelmed with grief and frustration. And it is at those points that we're going to have to say, just like the mentor to Musa alayhi salam was telling him, you just don't have enough patience to bear. You're just, you see an injustice around you and you just question immediately, why is this happening? We need to fix this right away and take action right away. Hold on. You need to understand that when these fitan are happening, and the Prophet ﷺ would describe towards the end of times, the blood of Muslims is going to be shed and injustice will be widespread. And as a result, by the way, because of this injustice, I can't believe this happened in my own lifetime. When I was first learning about Surah Kahf in the 90s, right? In the 90s when I was first learning about it, one of my teachers told me, that a time will come, the Prophet would describe a time will come where people will be, because of these fitan, his analysis was because of these fitan, people will start questioning their iman altogether. Like things on the Muslims will be so difficult, somebody might even come along and say, if we were really on the truth, committed to the truth, and Allah is on our side, all of this wouldn't be happening to us. I don't even want to be Muslim because all of these things that are happening to us. And I could not imagine when that would ever be the case. Like, things are bad, but it ain't that bad. Come on. That things are going to be bad and people are just going to say, I don't even want to be Muslim anymore. Things were like, I don't want to tell people I'm Muslim because I want to fit in. There used to be that. I don't want to look too Muslim. There used to be that. But I don't want to be Muslim. I couldn't imagine. Now when you say this, you don't have to imagine. You just have to open your email inbox. It's crazy. This happened within no time at all. No time at all. Subhanallah. So it's a real thing. It's a real thing that somebody's faith gets challenged when they see a lot of trials around them. And the first remedy to that in this particular piece of the surah is humility of knowledge. Just one recognizing I don't understand everything and being content with that. and not losing patience over that. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us among the patient and among those who Allah continues to open the doors of wisdom for. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Assalamu alaikum.